Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me one quick favor, see that little black subscribe button on the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Really does help this channel grow, my audience grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Thank you again. Now, here's the video that you came here for. You know, listen, you can't go a college football segment without talking Coach Prime, Colorado, and Oregon. So Colorado is traveling to Oregon. Oregon is a 21-point favorite in this game. The over-under is 70.5. And I will tell you this, no matter who wins, no matter who loses, there are going to be some takes coming out of this game. Because if Oregon wins, and Oregon wins in convincing fashion, everybody that's doubted Coach Prime, doubted Colorado, oh, we told you so, wait until they face a real team. And if Colorado somehow wins, oh my goodness, it will be insanity. Now, in terms of this game, let me start with Colorado. Again, Oregon is a 21-point favorite. Part of the reason, so I think anybody who listens to this podcast, to the Aaron Torres podcast knows, like I'm a Coach Prime guy. But part of why I'm a Coach Prime guy, I actually think he's doing a very good coaching job with this roster. Remember, 3.5 wins was the over-under win total. And as good as Shedeur Sanders has been, as good as Travis Hunter was pre-injury, and we did the whole thing with Hunter Blackburn, we don't have to relitigate all that. This team still has a lot of holes and a lot of problems. And so I think Coach Prime is doing an incredible job. You know who else I think is unbelievable? It's Shedeur Sanders, not just because he's statistically putting up great numbers, but it's because his team needs him to put up great numbers. Okay, so first of all, Shedeur Sanders this season, right now, he has the number 2 most passing yards in college football behind only Michael Penix. Not bad. 78% completion percentage. That is absurd. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. Here's the crazy part, though. It's not just that he's putting up stats. It's that he's putting up stats, and his team absolutely needs them. Because right now, they're not running the ball. They're not blocking for him. And at least statistically, the defense isn't playing very well. I'm going to give you some stats I think that are going to blow you away in terms of what I'm talking about with this whole situation. When I say Shedeur Sanders has a lot on his plate, listen to this, okay? Colorado right now, there's 131, 33, 133 maybe Division I teams. Let me look that up real quick. There's 133 Division I teams this year. Right now, Colorado is 129th in rushing. Not ideal. They also rank 130th out of 133 teams in sacks allowed. They've given up 18 sacks in 3 games. So Shedeur Sanders doesn't have a lot of time in the pocket, is getting hit. The run game isn't helping him. Everything that he's doing, we have to give him credit for because it is not easy back there. Now, the defense statistically has been really bad as well. I think in that case, the numbers are lying a little bit. Now, in terms of that Colorado defense, The statistically, Colorado is 125th in total defense out of 133 teams. Their scoring defense right now is 105th out of 133 teams. But I do think that number is a little deceptive. Let me tell you why. The TCU game, obviously, TCU moved the ball pretty much at will. But Nebraska, I thought they did a pretty good job. Jeff Sims certainly didn't help things, but Nebraska never got going offensively. And then last week against Colorado State, I think it's easy to have this perception of how it was. But Colorado State scored 14 points early, another touchdown in overtime. And then from there, really didn't do that much for quarter number 2, 3, and 4. So I actually think the defense hasn't been as bad as people think. And Shedeur Sanders, to his credit, has been awesome. Now, in terms of Oregon, I'll be honest, I think we're going to learn a ton about Oregon this year. Now, to be clear, I'm an Oregon guy. I picked them to win the Pac-12. I thought they'd go about 10-2. I think they're a really good team. But I don't think there's really much you can take out of their first 3 games. Game 1, they beat Portland State 81-7. Not sure there were a bunch of takeaways you could take away on a pen and paper there. Game 2, they do win at Texas Tech. I don't want to take away from that because Texas Tech is a very good football team. But you go back and look at that game. That was a game for the Oregon Ducks. They trailed late. They ended up winning 38-30. But keep in mind, you go back to that game. They were trailing what were they trailing? They were trailing 28. I'm looking at this really quick. They were trailing 27-18 going into the fourth quarter, outscored Texas Tech 20-3 from there. So it's not as though they blew Texas Tech out. Now, Texas Tech is a tough place to play. I'm not trying to discredit them. But Oregon rallied to win that game. And then, as importantly, Texas Tech basically went score for score with them, point for point, 456 yards of total offense, 472 yards in that game. So it's really pretty hard at this point to make any definitive statements on Oregon so far. One thing I can tell you is a couple things. Basically, the only thing that I can tell you, Bo Nix is picking up right where he left off last year. And again, I know the competition has been bad. Portland State and Hawaii, go ahead and call it a Mickey Mouse schedule. You know, we had the Mickey Mouse bubble NBA championship. They've had the Mickey Mouse schedule so far. But Bo Nix has been really awesome. 893 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like Shedeur Sanders, 77% completion percentage. So he's been awesome. But I think outside of that, it's hard for me to gauge too much about this team. What do we know really about Oregon? So I look at this team, and this is what I see. I do know that Bo Nix is good. The skill position talent is good, but have they been as productive as they are because Oregon is that good, or just the competition has been that bad, averaging almost 7 yards per carry on offense? And then here's the other stat that I find very interesting, okay? And again, I know most of Oregon's defensive points allowed came in that game against Texas Tech late in the 2 weeks ago, okay? But here's why I bring it up. This to me is very interesting. So last year, Oregon, this offense was explosive with Bo Nix. The offense was fantastic. The defense wasn't good, and specifically, they were not great at getting to the quarterback. This offseason, Oregon went out of their way in both the transfer portal and in the high school ranks to go out and get difference makers on the edge. Jordan Birch, transfer from South Carolina. Mateo Uyangalele, the brother of DJ, came in as a 5-star recruit. Here's what's interesting to me. Here is what is interesting to me. As I enter this game, Oregon has 15 tackles for loss in 3 games. That ranks in the 90s nationally. And they have just 6 sacks in 3 games. And remember, they played Portland State and Hawaii amongst those 3 games. And so on the one hand, you could probably sit there and say, well, you know, were they just not showing much against inferior competition? That's certainly possible. But what if they can't get to the quarterback? What if they can't get to Shedeur Sanders? And what if you give Shedeur Sanders time in that pocket? Now, obviously, this game's a little bit different. There will be no Travis Hunter. We wish him a speedy recovery. I think that goes without saying. But I just sit there and say, I do have a pick on this game. And it's funny because I made my picks at Aaron Torres online, and I didn't like a side. I think Colorado covers. I can't pick them to win. Now, to keep in mind, by the way, I've had Colorado's back throughout this season. Thought they could upset TCU. Thought for sure they were going to beat Nebraska and cover. I thought they'd handle business last week against Colorado State. I don't think they're quite ready to go on the road to Eugene and win this game. I found it very interesting. So there was a little narrative that came out this week about Shedeur Sanders potentially returning for another year of college football. I went back and watched the video posted by Well Off Media. Well Off Media, which is Deion Sanders Jr. runs that. And you can see in those meeting rooms, Coach Prime is worried that his team isn't ready, that they're enjoying the fruits of success too much without realizing the work that has to go in. I find it very hard that they're going to be able to go to Eugene and win this game. I do think they cover, though. I think Oregon wins maybe like 42-27. Oregon wins. Colorado covers. That is my official pick. But listen, what I do not think is going to happen. If you're one of those people that's waiting on Colorado to fall flat, I don't think that's going to happen. Well coached, great quarterback, and I don't know that Oregon is the team to do it, but I do think Colorado covers even if Oregon wins.